with a, what did you mean by that? Or back up for a second. So this really is a dialogue. It's a discussion. Please, Jessica, Sarah, some of the other ones who've been here before, just go ahead and ask questions, or even ask the question you know the person next to you has, but maybe is a little bit too timid because you know that person better than yourself. So ask on that behalf of that person. So let's go for the first little principle here. The body is designed and poised to heal. It is wired. We're created. God wired our body to heal. It's designed to battle bugs. That's why some moms aren't here, because their kids, their immune system's kicked on without even us thinking about it. So it's all automatic. All we have to do is understand what symptoms mean and get out of the way. Okay, what I mean by what symptoms mean is health symptoms are a foreign language. They really are. So you can have 3 kids, one with eczema, one with a little bit of depressive issues, and one with parasites, and I fix all of them the same way. So how can you say, well, we got 3 different symptoms here, what's the causal factor? I'm going to be talking about 2 things today, and I want you to write this down, D and D. D and D. Number 1 is deficiency, and number 2 is dysfunction. And we'll hit that on the next slide, but I want you to remember D and D 100% of the time, without exception, whenever you're asking yourself the question, why is my body doing this or that, or not doing this or that, or complaining in a certain way? It's D and D. And the first one is deficiency, and the second one is dysfunction. If you start here, it'll help you ask questions of your doctor, or your chiropractor, or your husband, or whoever. But D and D, we're going to go through those going forward. So essentially, with deficiency and dysfunction, those are the most important things that you can look at when you think about, what vitamin do I give? Why is my lower back hurting? Okay, so D and D, we're going to hit them over and over. Now, the body's designed to battle bugs, heal, repair, but the problem is, and I said we need to get out of the way, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're going to hit them real quickly. Identifying and removing stressors. What's a stressor? Not eating on time. Your blood sugar's a little bit low. Any mom not eat on time and have a little bit of low blood sugar? Okay, maybe you forget to drink water, or your kids forget to drink water, and you're at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at Target, and you're wondering why they're having a meltdown. Stressors, hydration, eating on time, blood sugar. And I'm going to hit a slide, and we're going to assess your stressors very quickly, and you're going to give yourself a grade. But I mentioned a couple: bacteria, parasites, EMF radiation, cell phones. We're going to hit it in detail, but I'm just giving you kind of a quick little overview of what we're going to be going over today. So stressors, we're going to take those away, teach you how to assess them and take them away. The second thing is, these are the foundational 3, I should say 4, 3. Hydration, digestion, and blood sugar. This is overlooked by so many people and so many parents and individuals. I start here with every consultation, and 100% of the time, without exception, I find 1 or all 3 of these not working, or out of function or dysfunctional. Hydration. Drinking water is great. You've just consumed a nutrient, but it doesn't mean that you're hydrated. Okay? And you can drink Gatorade because it's the thirst quencher, right? And that will hydrate you? No. Your hormones allow you to hydrate, and a lot of people, because of the D and D, don't build the hormones sufficiently, and so you're partially hydrated or you're just straight up dehydrated. And so you would be surprised, but you can be deficient in vitamin B6, write it down, nugget. You can be deficient in vitamin B6, and you will not build the hormone that helps you to hydrate, balance your sodium and your potassium. And that is the most common cause of dehydration. It's a nutritional deficiency, and when you look at vitamin B6, it's in everything you eat, and it's stable when you cook it. It's in everything you eat, it's stable when you cook it. How could you be deficient? You don't activate it, you don't turn it on. Vitamins and minerals, proteins, hormones need to be turned on and off as you need them. If all of your B6 in that tomato you ate was active, and all the vitamins that you ate in your food were active, you would burn up because it's too much nutrients too quickly. Your body is smart enough to turn on and off what you need. When you ovulate, progesterone turns on and estrogen turns off, and vice versa. And so your body turns on and off what it needs when it needs to. You don't think about any of it, but the dysfunction, the D word, is the issue. So I'm going to get the hydration there. That's a nugget for B6, and you're going to recognize that I'm going to talk about B6 a lot. Digestion, food sensitivities, bloating, gas, etc. All the different digestive issues. That's functional as well. You can put food in your mouth and get a portion of it. It can create immune response. It can create food sensitivities. It can feed yeast. Undigested food is not helpful. Even once a week, it's not helpful, but 3 times a day? Okay. B6 is also required to build stomach acid. If you don't build stomach acid, you don't digest food, you don't activate a lot of your enzymes, you don't get as many minerals. So if you don't have stomach acid, you don't stand a chance. I want to say that stomach acid is probably the foundational key for health because it activates everything else. And it's not fairy dust. You have to make it with vitamin B6 and zinc, which you burn up when you have infections. So you can see here, as I talk to you a little bit, I want you to understand the deficiencies and dysfunctions. But working on hydration, digestion, and then the blood sugar handling, guess what vitamin handles and helps insulin to work? Just guess. Right. So a lot of times people will fail in all 3 of these because of vitamin B6, or you can have various failures for other reasons. Okay, we'll talk about those. And again, like I said, I'm going to kind of go through these quickly. You just write down a few notes, and then, like I said, it'll be nuggets for each of you, and then we can assess this as we go forward with the next slide. Supporting your glands and function to enable healing. At the core of nutritional therapy is healthy cells build healthy tissues build healthy organs, healthy systems. So if you have adrenal failure or hypothyroid or whatever they want to call it, what is it? It's a tired gland or organ, and so it's not functional, or it's limited in its function. So as your glands and organs run out and tire out, and you go to your doctor or your naturopath, and they say, oh, you're adrenal fatigued, here's some help for your adrenal glands. Great. There's a bridge ahead, it's broken, and the train is going really fast. Let's just give you some adrenal support and extend the bridge a little bit, but the bridge is still out, so it's kind of just delaying the issue. What do we go back to? Look at number 1. If you have adrenal fatigue or hypothyroid or whatever, you have to take the stresses off the glands and organs. Otherwise, you're just going to extend the rail line a little bit further, and it's going to run out, and you will fatigue out. I know for specifically, pause for a second, one of my stories. I had vaccine reactions as a kid. I lived in mold when I was a kid. I had parasites as a child. And then when I moved into the dorms at San Diego State, there was mold there, really bad. And I remember some of the kids in the dorms having to leave in the first week. They couldn't even handle it. They were coughing, hacking so bad. I endured it because I had a certain room. I kept my window open, had a little air filter. But about 2 weeks before I graduated college, I was taking a shower, and hot water in the morning is detoxing. It feels great, right? Well, my adrenals were not fatigued. They were exhausted. And in order to stand up, you need adrenal glands. And so I was in the shower. I felt so bad I couldn't stand. I took a knee. Stood back up, took a knee, stood back up. I'm like, man. Crawled back to my dorm room in my birthday suit with a towel over top of me and laid in bed for 3 days. Eating the food under my bed, drinking water. And your adrenal glands, they only recover when you're laying flat. So I got a little adrenal recovery, and then I was Superman again, jumped up, went to 3 more weeks of school, moved out of the dorms, and I started feeling better. Okay? So when your glands wear out, you wear out. You tire out. Sound familiar? How many of you were on bed rest when you were pregnant, perhaps? Okay? That's the adrenal glands. Why were your adrenals tired? We'll go over the stressors in just a second, okay? But that was a quick little sidebar story, but you can see I've experienced adrenal fatigue, I've experienced acne, eczema, bloating, gas, gallbladder attacks, the whole thing. Why? Because I was loaded with gook. That's a word I like to use a lot. Gook, all of it, parasites, mold, yeast, okay? So my glands and organs wore out because despite going to San Diego State, I actually didn't drink. But I did go for a double major. I was taking 22 units. I worked 2 jobs. And so I burnt out from mold as well as my schedule and everything else. So that was my quick little story there of my, what I would call a crash. And I didn't even see it coming because I'm a guy. And I have testosterone. And none of your husbands have health issues, right? Maybe if we take care of him first, you would have less stressors, right? No, this is not my first show here for ladies. Okay, this slide is your assessment tool. Okay, we're going to go through this relatively quickly, but this is where you are going to look at your stressors, and you're going to give yourself a grade. Okay, and you can look at your kids, you can look at your mom, your dad, you can look at family members, friends you know, but really we're going to go through the stressors here real quick, and I have them in order for a reason. And so that first one there, nutrient deficiency, sound familiar? Okay, these are the stumbling blocks to good health. So when you look at stressors, think of it like a backpack. If you're going to the zoo and you've got 180 pounds in your backpack and you have that hill by tiger enclosure or whatever that's really steep, you know what I'm talking about, right? Your husband's pushing on your bottom and you got the stroller in the backpack and the whole thing, right? I see it. Or you got a kid on the front, backpack on the back, and a stroller, right, with the cooler. Unload the backpack, right? That's the principle. So how do we unload the backpack? Nutritional deficiencies, we address them. We get rid of the parasites. We look at other factors. So just real quickly here, we're looking at the stressors as a backpack. You don't want to carry weight you don't need to carry, because every time you do, your glands and organs wear out. So I'm kind of, like I said, connecting the dots here. So nutrient deficiencies. Anyone have ever had a cramp during your menstrual cycle? Magnesium. We're going to go over a stressor for hydration here, but everyone's or some people have had a lab panel and, oh, your vitamin D levels are low. Okay, we've heard that before. Really, nutrient deficiency, our diet gets us a pretty good amount of nutrients in principle, on paper, when you read the label. However, if you don't activate the nutrient, you don't have it. B6, folate. Anybody heard of the gene MTHFR? Yeah, some of you have. Yeah, you got a couple. The mother effer gene. It's really common. It's really important for moms to know about this because folate is so important for health, healthy midlines and babies. But to make a long story short, you can eat the folate, but if you don't activate the folate, you don't get it. Okay? How many times I've given L-tyrosine to people who are schizophrenic or depressed or stressed out? They just can't activate the tyrosine, so they can't build a certain neurotransmitter. Or people who are hypothyroid and they're living on thyroid medications, I give them a little bit of tyrosine in the active form, and all of a sudden they wake up and their engine's idling. They don't fall asleep after they eat, and they've actually got energy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the first time, 3 days after starting it. Why? If you don't have something, D, deficient, your body can't do it. Magnesium, muscle cramp, amino acids run the immune system. So I work very, very carefully on number one, because if you go faster than you're hydrated or faster than you have basic vitamins, B6 is the biggest one. B6 runs everything. Anyone taking a prenatal pack and feel like you want to vomit? Okay, here, yeah. The reason being is any therapies that you do, write this down, please. Any therapies that you apply if you're vitamin B6 deficient will contraindicate. Contraindicate. What I mean by that is you take your prenatal pack, which is loaded with vitamins, but you don't have enough B6, the B12 is going to do its job, the folate's going to do its job, the minerals are going to do its job. If you don't have enough B6, I just told you in the beginning, you can't hydrate. Taking vitamins and minerals without hydration, taking vitamins and minerals if your liver can't keep up with you, is going to make you feel nauseous or gooky. Anything that you apply, if you're B6 deficient, it's an if statement. I can see this on a blood cell panel very quickly. I've got a nutritional questionnaire, or you can just tell me your health history, because there's a lot of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas that have gone before you, and they've got 30, 40, 50 years on you. And when they're B6 deficient, I can see the Parkinson's, and I can see the diabetes, and I can see the cardiac issues and the arrhythmias. And anyone ever play Mad Libs? A lot of younger faces are Mad Libs, right? Okay, so if you're B6 deficient, and it's genetic, it's like Mad Libs. You just fill in the body part and the adjective and the pain dysfunction, it's all relevant. It does so many things, vitamin B6 does. And I could probably think about maybe 20 to 25% of you would need it just because you're moms and have had babies and maybe you're lactating and your menstrual cycle's running and you're not sleeping at night. You just need more because you don't have enough, but there's probably a large percentage of you that actually can't activate it and don't even know that. So.
Can I bring up something on that too? Because when you did the testing on me on that stuff, my internal medicine doctor was like, "How do you know this?" And Garret was able to see it through certain blood panels, and they were not able to tell me that I was short in those vitamins. So if you go to your doctor and you say, "Hey, can I do this?" and they say, "I don't know what you're talking about," you can't tell if you're B6 deficient. You can. I just want to open that up.
Okay, great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we will talk about blood chemistry here in just a second, but I see it on just the basic blood panel, the complete blood count, metabolic panel. And those are the things that your midwives and doctors have probably run. And I look at the labs and I'll say, has anyone ever said the following 5 things? And you're like, nope. The next baby's going to be a lot more pleasant. You're going to have a lot less symptoms. You're going to recover faster. You won't have postpartum depression. You won't have nausea and sickness. Okay, so just know that all these symptoms that you deal with are deficiencies. Okay, so nutrient deficiency. Now we're going to skip through the next couple here pretty quickly. Function we talked about, Glands and organs are tired, but dysbiosis infection. See those two underlines there? Parasite and mold. Okay, there's two types of people in this world, people who have parasites and people who think they don't have them. And so some of us have them worse than others. My daughter had them, remember? Kind of bring that back. I had them. Why? Has any of you ever heard of a live cell test where you prick your finger and you put your blood on a little slide and you look at it under a microscope? Okay, we did it in high school just for fun because I thought it was neat. But you can look at your blood cells and you can see parasites in the blood cells. Not the 3-foot ones in your digestive system that make you lose 10 pounds in a week. There's a lot of different parasites in the body. And those of us who don't activate vitamin B6, remember Mad Libs, we don't build a resilient ring on our blood cells. And so essentially what happens is we're more prone to parasites than the average person. And you can have homeless people, houseless people, eating out of a dumpster, prick their blood and they've got no parasites. You're like, how is that possible? I fly my food in from the Amish and, you know, the whole thing. Right? Or you're buying the organic food and everything else. Yeah, your organic grapes have parasites on them just like everything else. But we're more prone to getting them. I'm just a Fruit Loop that fell out of the bowl, so thanks for letting me out. But when you look at your red blood cells, and I can see this in the CBC panel as well, I'll see that your blood cells are bent a certain direction, and I'm going to know that you're going to be more prone to parasites. So parasite is number one because I would say 6 people out of 10 in my practice, when I do the first 2 buttons up there, and then I follow with a critter cleanse, get rid of the parasites, they're like, wow, life is great for 6 to 9 months, because then they kind of stop taking their vitamins, and then they forget to take their B6, and then the parasites come back. They do a parasite cleanse again, they feel great. So the big idea with parasites is, and critters, you got to kind of keep up on them if you have the constitutional weakness. Just like if you have a weakness for muscle cramps or whatever, you're always taking your magnesium, it makes a huge difference. Parasite cleanses in my practice, we usually send a notification out twice a year in the spring and the fall. Hey, get rid of your critters, life will be a whole lot better. Oh yeah, it's been 6 months already. Okay, so parasites number one. Mold, since coronavirus and people moving from office to home and home to office and moving houses in different places, I have done more mold panels in the past 3 or 4 years than I've probably done in the previous. And mold, you get it from 3 places. Write it down. You get it from your food, you get it from buildings, and you get it from the environment. Food, buildings, environment. Guess what vitamin's the most important for running the bile pathway and everything else that gets rid of mold? Getting really good at this. If I was giving out, probiotics or something for every right answer, I'd be out of them already. But you can see here, it's the nutritional deficiencies that allow the mold to set in. So your husband's in the house and he sneezes once a year, and you're in the house and you're completely fatigued, burnt out, and you're coughing constantly and sneezing or whatever. Some people handle mold really well, and some people don't. Remember the dorms in college? Okay. It can be the ballet studio down the street. True story. It can be the dorms at a college. I have 5 students at a Christian college, and all of them have mold. I have 4 naturopath doctors graduating from a naturopathic doctor school, and I've helped all of them remediate their mold that they got from the school. You're like, so you can get it anywhere. Buildings. So if you're in a room or a building and you're paying attention and you notice everyone sneezing, coughing, or your kiddos come home and they have this 3-week cold that just never goes away, every 3 weeks the IgG4s will activate and they'll try to get rid of the mold, and you just can't do it. Why? Because you don't have B6 and a couple other things. But recurring colds, recurring coughs, it's your body trying to detox. Mold suppresses the immune system. That's the big idea. Keeps you from getting rid of things, keeps you from detoxifying, and it's really, really sticky. You've heard of maybe aflatoxin in peanut butter. Everyone kind of read about that once in a while. Peanuts grow in the ground. There's mold in the ground. There's mold in milk and dairy products because the cows eat the grain that's moldy. Okay, mothers can pass mold through their breast milk, mold toxins. It's life. Don't be worried. When you're aware of it, you're like, oh, I can do a couple things, and it makes a big difference. So parasites and mold, if you have those 2, you're not going to be able to clear bacteria, virus, yeast, and fungal very well because your system's suppressed. Okay, so if you think you need to do a yeast cleanse, you're probably right, but you need to march to the left and start on the left. That's the big idea. Start on the left, and the virus, bacteria, yeast will usually clear itself. I have people with warts on their finger, HPV, right? They do a parasite cleanse, and the warts go away. Like, how'd you do that? I didn't. The immune system did it. It just couldn't do it because it was infected. It couldn't clear what it needed to do. So dysbiosis. Now, if we just drew a line right there with nutritional deficiency, function, and bugs and critters, what grade would you give yourself for addressing these pretty diligently? Needs improvement, C+, you can give yourself whatever grade you want. There's always room to work here. So if I just draw the line right there, that's where I start with everybody with my initial consultations or just discussing things. Because if you're anything below this level, then they're helpful, but they're not core foundational that's going to help you reverse your health issues and fix things. Chemicals, we live in more chemicals than you can believe. It's in the air, in the sky, in the products you eat and breathe and everything else. So chemicals, we definitely want to reduce the stressors there, but B6ers tend to hang more chemicals. We're sensitive to smoke. We retain more fire retardant than the average person and all kinds of weird stuff. So because we just don't detoxify it well. So you can have chemicals in you and not even realize it. You don't have to have, some people have high mercury levels from vaccine exposure or other things. You can live in a pristine place and still have mercury because China burns coal and it blows over and you just don't detox it, but you breathe it over 25 years. And I do a hair sample or a blood sample and I find it in you. It's just unique in that you just don't get rid of it. Allergies, bee stings, nuts, food sensitivities, a lot of that is a symptom of line number 3. So if you have parasites and mold and you're not digesting your food, you're going to have a pretty upset immune system. And it's going to have a problem when you get stung by a bee or maybe certain nuts and seeds and things that you eat. So food sensitivities, I usually don't run those panels till I get rid of the critters. And it's amazing how many people, when I do a parasite cleanse and bind up the mold, they say, well, I can eat a peanut butter cookie now, or I can eat strawberries, or I can eat bananas, because their body's balanced. So food sensitivities are real, but they're a symptom, not usually the problem. So if you're thinking about doing a food panel with your kiddos or yourself, march right up to the top of the page, work on those first, and then you'd be surprised at how fewer food sensitivities you have. And I'll show you a couple things that I brought with me to help with that. The last two, I'll be honest, the emotional, mental was the biggest stressor in my body that broke me down. That's probably why I was more susceptible to mold and a lot of other things. I wasn't prepared for the emotional, mental stresses that have been presented to me by a lot of people when I went through all my different trainings, but those are real. And I can already tell by looking at some of you right away that you have emotional, mental stresses. I can see your eyes, I can see your shoulders, I can see everything. It's really easy for me to see it. So I do not dismiss this. It's at the bottom of the list because drinking water is really important, getting some B6 in you so that you can get through your emotional, mental stresses. If you're at counseling or you've had post-traumatic stress for any reason, I had somebody with PTSD because they didn't get into medical school. And if you're born growing up thinking you're going to be a doctor and you open that letter up at the mailbox and it says denied, complete post-traumatic stress. Or maybe your dad passed away unexpectedly or you were abused, or it's all relevant. Each person handles trauma differently, but recognizing that you were never the same after, the letter came in the mail, dad passed away, the missions trip to some country where you saw some things you didn't want to see, it's all relevant because each person handles it differently. By the way, B6ers, along with a few others, our circuit breakers turn off during stress, but they don't turn back on very well. So you can experience the event and survive, but the reset is very difficult for us. So remember B6 and Mad Libs? So if you do have emotional, mental stresses and you bring them up with me, number 1, it's in strict confidence. Number 2, it's very relevant, even though it's number 6, 7 on the list. And the last one, who's been to a chiropractor? Who's had a kid with an ear infection who went to the chiropractor and 15 minutes later they're better? Anybody? Okay. Structural traumas or structural issues. Kiddos with earaches. A lot of times when they grow or their molars are coming down, something's a little crooked, that little duct is really, really tiny. And if you get that straightened up, I have had story after story where moms take their kid to a chiropractor, get a little adjustment, and the earache goes away in 15 minutes. So, nugget, if you've never been there. Pardon me? Yeah, they just have to be born. No, and I say that it's just in laughter because there are pediatric certified chiropractors that will adjust your baby. I mean, I don't mean to be vulgar, but when you get pushed through a soup can, some things are crooked, okay? So the cranial, the neck, you can avoid colic, you can get a better latch, you can do all kinds of things because the structural trauma of being born is real, but there's certified chiropractors, pediatric certified, that will adjust your baby, and it's amazing how quickly a lot of the modalities and symptoms will change after birth with a child, yes.
That also is for, if your child gets constipated a lot. My daughter, same thing. She was going to the bathroom, it wasn't enough, and the bile got backed up, and she was like, had a big knot in her stomach, and they straightened her out, and she was able to live that better.
If you're an Olympic hurdler, this is just a word picture. If you're an Olympic hurdler and you're jumping over the hurdle and you're nicking the top of every hurdle, when your foot plants and your brain tells you where you are in space, it's not connecting. You get a chiropractic adjustment, you clear all the hurdles. Okay. I remember playing soccer and being a half a step ahead of everybody or a half a step behind. If I was a half a step behind, I'm like, man, I didn't go to the chiropractor this week. Remember, I lived in mold in the dorms. I was not straight in any sense. Okay, but I would recognize I was a half a step ahead of everybody in soccer if I was adjusted. So your alignment affects your function. Back to number one. So I have that structural at the bottom there, but for little kiddos, it's really, really important as they grow and the molars come down and they're crying, the snot's in their head and everything else. That duct is so small to drain the ear. If you keep that straight, you can avoid a lot of antibiotics and a lot of urgent care visits. So regular adjustments or just having that professional in the background. Okay? How are we doing on time? 10:50? How are we doing on time? Half an hour left? 20 minutes? Okay. So now that you have your, now that you have your backpack defined and you're walking up the hill at the zoo, kind of bring the picture back, is your backpack heavy? Is there some things you can unload? Maybe you just look at this list and you write some notes down there on the side and go, you know what, I've never done a parasite cleanse, never even heard of that, or I did one time and it really, really helped me, or why am I always doing these yeast cleanses, reproductively always having the yeast there? The bile, the parasites, it upsets those things, and so the yeast are the symptom. So if you're constantly having yeast issues, then you will loop to the left side there, and a lot of times after I get rid of the parasites and the mold, the yeast doesn't have a chance to grow. It's not a problem. Go ahead. Okay, what is a parasite cleanse? We'll go over that at the end. I'll let you know how we do that. Essentially, it's an herbal product, and I get you prepared for it. So remember, I told you, if you don't activate B6 and a few other things, you're more prone to parasites. So one thing I do is to get you ready for the cleanse so that when you get rid of them, they don't come back in 2 to 3 weeks. That's the important part. So if you have them, if you have parasites and you need to do a parasite cleanse, you're not ready for it. That should make sense to you because they'll just come back. So a parasite cleanse, it's an herbal cocktail of things in herbs that will get rid of parasites, both the little worms, the little bugs, as well as the eggs that tend to be a cyst, and they'll kind of hide in your body and they activate certain times. But I do parasite cleanses over the moon cycles because that's when they're active. And then it's 10 days of parasite cleanse, 5 days break, and 10 days of parasite cleanse. So drops? Yeah, it's a tincture and it's a capsule. Okay, 60 milligrams a day is where I start. I'll just give you the number. And there's a couple different forms, and again, if you genetically cannot activate it, then I will give you the specific form, but 60 is the milligrams that you need if you've got one of the genes broken that activates it, and I usually push you up to about 100 if you have both genes. But if you have both genes broken, with B6, you're usually living in a room with aluminum foil wallpaper and an air filter because you can't handle anything. Okay, but there's a lot of people with one gene that's deficient, so about 60 milligrams. And no prenatal pack's going to get you there. I don't care if you've got a variety of different ones. If you can't activate it, I have to give you a special form, but about 60 milligrams is the right number.
Don't you have to have a binder too to be able to provide
For a parasite cleanse?
for B6?
Not necessarily.
You're not actually can.
A binder? No. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next slide now, and I'll loop around and answer the binder question in a second. Health symptoms are stressor signposts. Remember how I told you there's a foreign language out there? It's called health symptoms. Well, when I do your, if I were to take your case and complaints that you have, there's a little series of steps here, and I want you to understand kind of how the body fails and how it fails predictably, and then you can kind of assess where you are, and don't wait until you're at pain or disease level to ask for help. So a lot of times the symptoms are God's first gift to you to tell you something's not right. So if you have an acid reflux or a little bit of nausea when you're pregnant, or bloating and gas, or your bowel movements are slow, your stools are clumpy and lumpy, you're hangry, which was the most hated word in 2021. During COVID, all the husbands came home to work. Are you hangry? So, and you felt it. Honey, pull over, it's time to eat. 30 minutes later, he's still driving. You're like, no, you missed like 12 exits ago. They must pull over, it's time to eat. So B6ers have a hard time with blood sugar. And I don't want to just beat that drum over and over again, but if you're waiting too long to eat, and you're getting upset, not only does it say that your blood sugar is low, but you don't handle your blood sugar very well. You need some help. But symptoms are first: burdens, pain, dysfunction, disease, and death. Okay, that's pretty quick little list there. But a couple people came up to me beforehand and started talking to me about the disease department. I had some questions about that for a family member. I hear about, for the most part, all of these pretty consistently, but most people wait for the pain. No, I'm sorry, guys wait for pain. There's two reasons for guys to talk to me: pain, and then certain functional issues that don't have function. But I'll just keep it G-rated. But pain, gallbladder, bloating, kind of things. So if you do have health symptoms, women talk. They come to me all the time and say, oh, I've got all these different problems, and I want to fix this in my skin and my hormones. And that's what a lot of the issues are, is your body trying to communicate to you. So the symptoms, burdens are usually where most of the ladies come to me. Guys wait for the pain and dysfunction. So if you don't want to wait that long, your body's been talking to you for a while. So if I map out your health conditions for you, you can realize, wow, this isn't just getting older, or this just isn't the third baby. This is possibly a subclinical infection or something else. Okay? So just a quick little list here to kind of help you understand where you are. So if your backpack is heavy and you're in the pain dysfunction department, don't wait. Okay? This is usually when you go to a doctor to try to get some anti-inflammatories or some pain meds, but it doesn't address the hydration, the function, the parasites, right? So please, give yourself a grade, and then you'll know where to go from there. This is the biggest one I want you to take home with you, because when I looked at the list of things Jessica said, relative to some of the quibbles and complaints that you have, or what you talk about sometimes, and your reactivity in the evening with your kids, or digestive issues, or not sleeping at night, hydration stress. When you think about kids, your husband, yourself, there are emotional responses to hydration stress. There are inflammatory, pain, and dysfunction. So that left column there, guess what vitamin is essential for hydrating? B6. Okay. Also electrolytes. As a mom who's nursing, you're burning a lot of minerals just making milk and chasing your husband around and your kids around and everything else. You're an athlete 24/7. Your body's running on the inside. Detox. Yeah, really. I mean, you're welcome. You are. But see, your treadmill's running 15 miles an hour, but you only think it's running 7. I usually say about 64 ounces to 80 ounces at a minimum. That's the water. And then you got to make sure you get plenty of minerals with that. More if you're lactating, more if it's hot, more if you're pregnant. But really, you want to drink as much water as you can hold, because if you drink 84 ounces of water and it comes out 5 minutes after you drink it, then your body can't hold that water, and we need to adjust your ability to hydrate. But water is really, really important for not only emotional stresses, but a lot of physical. When your body is dehydrated, your lungs are dehydrated. How many parents have a kid running down the soccer field and at halftime they kind of have an asthma thing going on, or you've even witnessed it? Okay, dry lungs, cut grass, high histamine oranges at halftime, you don't stand a chance without going to the inhaler. Okay, so there are issues with dehydration that are, lung, respiratory, emotional, physical, digestion. I mean, your digestive system is 37 feet long. It's a great big huge muscle. You don't feel it cramping, but if it's not working, a lot of times it can be hydration based. Okay, so this is where you start with kids. This is where you start with yourself. And I just want to remind you that the initial signs of dehydration, you can see them there. A lot of them hit your head. You don't realize it, but the kid walking down the store at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Target having a meltdown going after the gummy bears, that's dehydration. Okay, so they wake up in the morning, don't drink enough water, their blood sugar's off. You can survive without drinking water. I don't want to say, look at an alcoholic, they don't drink a whole lot of water. Your brain gets about 80% of what it needs from blood sugar and food, and about 20% from water. So if you are not having enough water, you will crave the C word, crave, like uncontrollably scream for gummy bears or crackers or some kind of carb or chocolate or Starbucks. They know this, and they tell you if you come back between 3 and 5, you can get a half-price coffee if you buy one at 8 in the morning, right? Taller the cup, the better. So this is really just important for you to understand that water dehydration is not just related to muscle cramps. A lot of it is emotional, mental. And you can find that when you get the B6 in there, the hydration, your kids go, or you do. I mean, how many moms, when you sit down finally and your kids are asleep, you go, like, that's a neurological reset from the stress from the day. You sit down, your adrenals get a break, you take a deep breath. I love it when I'm able to help families with this basic issue of hydration. And I brought a couple electrolytes with me so you can kind of take a look at them. The ones you buy at the store, there's 1 or 2 that are good, but I've got a couple words of wisdom on, there's a lot of them available at Costco and different places, and they sound good, they look cool, they got a great label, and they don't help. There's either too much sugar, sugar's the first ingredient, you need 5 times as much potassium as you need magnesium, they don't have enough salt, etc. So I can guide you on how to hydrate, and I'll, at the end here, kind of show you how to do that. But just recognize that if you are using an electrolyte, just say, I wonder if I'm using the right one. Now, if you're pushing the stroller up the hill at the zoo, and you have some LMNT electrolyte from Costco in your water bottle, and you're breaking a sweat, pushing that stroller up the hill, that's a great electrolyte for that moment. It'll put hydration back into your bloodstream, but it's not going to turn the raisins into grapes. And when I say raisins into grapes, I'm talking about cells. Cells, tissues, glands, organs. When you're dehydrated, it's at the cellular level. So electrolytes matter, okay? Next slide, sugar. If somebody came to you and said, I've got a great investment, and this is what you do. You get to pay interest on money you haven't borrowed. Wait a minute, okay, so when you do an investment, usually you get some interest payment. No, you're paying interest on money you have not borrowed. Like, who would sign up for that program? That's like mailing a check to the IRS just because it's fun. NWJ, no way, Jose, nobody would do that. That's what sugar is. Sugar is paying interest on money you haven't borrowed. Okay? And it's everywhere. It's in crackers. I think they're even putting it in milk now, I heard, to sweeten the milk to make it better. They're going to try to, because that way kids can get, if you're dehydrated and you get sugar, then you feel better about it. So sugar is in a lot of foods. It's one of the things with water and reduction of sugar consumption. It's very, very helpful, because if you're paying interest on money you haven't borrowed, and you don't have B6 to start with, do you stand a chance to hydrate and manage your blood sugar? A lot of stress on people is hydration and too much sugar because of what it does. So I know sweets are fun. I eat dark chocolate and I like a cookie and that kind of thing. But I'd like you to just stop for a second and look at your drinks, your LMNT electrolyte and a few other things. And if you are more than 10 grams of sugar in your meal, sugar, not honey, not Rapadura, not, coconut sugar, but just pure sugar, more than 10 grams, that's a flag. And when you look at your little protein bar or whatever, it's at 23 grams, or your certain drinks or whatever you're doing, take a look, give yourself an assessment. But when I looked at the list that Jessica gave me, and I was looking at stress and sleep, etc., I just put this slide together so you can see that, and we know sugar's not good for oral health, but sleep. If you burn up all your B6 trying to manage your insulin and your blood sugar, there's no B6 left for your neurotransmitters. Every neurotransmitter requires B6 to function. Dopamine, sex drive, serotonin, activity, melatonin, sleep, all the neurotransmitters are B6 driven. So when I give B6 to somebody and all of a sudden they sleep a little bit deeper, they start dreaming at night, they can hydrate. Again, I'm trying to give you some of the things here that the nutritional deficiencies you can address right away, right up front. So sleep is really important. B6 is important for that. but sugar really affects how you sleep because of the nutritional deficiencies it creates. How many people wake at night to go pee 2, 3, 4 times a night, or you just have to get up and go to the potty? If your body can't manage the blood sugar at night, it will kick water out of the kidneys to balance the blood sugar. And so that's why you get up to, especially if you just tinkle, like you get up and run to the potty and you really got to go, it's urgent, and you go tinkle, that wasn't very much. Why did I get up? That was an emergency response. Your body's like, your blood sugar's too low, I'm going to kick some water out of you. Okay?
What about monk fruit sweetener?
Monk fruit sweetener, agave, there's very different ones. Each person is unique. Monk fruit's a little bit more forgiving, so yes. But agave, no. They got a cute label, it's blue in color, it makes it look good. No, agave's pretty sweet. But again, each person's unique with the amount of sugar. If you are eating too much sugar and you eat less, you will feel a benefit, but there's some people who just don't handle blood sugar well, and so you have to address that and adjust it a little bit more. Okay, but some of the sugar substitutes still trigger an insulin response, and so we just have to assess that for each person. Then you can see the last couple there. But the last one there is the expensive. I want you just to recognize the primary vitamins that sugar burns up: magnesium, B6, B12, folate. So there are some people, just a moment, there are some people who just cannot afford to eat sugar, myself included, unless I'm taking my B6 every single day, because I can't process it. I don't do well with it. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Yes? Myself, I'm very insulin sensitive, and I take B6 twice a day. I take tyrosine twice a day. I'm a mental health case without them, I'll be honest. It's my genetics. But if I eat the sugar, it affects my mood significantly, even though I take the B vitamins. So I can eat a cookie, I can eat a little something, but if it's a 3-day weekend and we're out on holiday and I forget to take my vitamins and I'm just kind of eating whatever, that's 1 + 1 is -10. Forgetting my vitamins in a 3-day weekend somewhere. I mean, I get those phone calls at least once or twice a week. Garrett, help, I went on a 3-day weekend and forgot my vitamins, what do I do? Just put your feet on the ground, take your vitamins, it'll take a couple days, you'll recover. But for me, that's the effect. It hits me mostly, everything for me fails in my head. And my liver doesn't detox as well. Like I told you, the mold in the dorms, so if I eat the sugar, I notice too, my skin will start to give a little bit of indication. So, very subtle, but I can feel it.
There's a lot of different forms of magnesium. Is there one that is better than others, or?
Okay, there's different forms of magnesium is the question. Yeah, there's like 10 different forms. Magnesium orotate, great for your mood, great for your head. And then you've got glycinate, gluconate, various different ones. I usually suggest you take a 3-form magnesium, one that's good for muscles and metabolism, one that's good for blood sugar, and one that's good for mood. So when you're looking for a magnesium supplement, I would stay away from magnesium oxide. Put MO, MgO, and put a cross through it. That one's very detoxing, but it doesn't provide you what you need for metabolism too much. There's a couple products out there. They have a great label on them, but it's just magnesium oxide, which is a really, really cheap form of magnesium. It's a very quick detoxer, but it doesn't replete you when you're trying to manage your blood sugar or keep your muscles from cramping or get through your menstrual cycle. It's been tough. So magnesium glycinate, magnesium gluconate are good ones. Okay, I'll just show you a couple things here that might help you. So we talked real quickly about mold. If you need to be assessed for mold and understand if you have mold or not, the quickest way to do it is to eat some dirt, and you'll know if you have mold or not. And what I mean by that is, don't eat dirt. This is a little product, it's from Biocidin. Maybe some of you have heard that company before, Biocidin. They have a couple parasite cleanses, but this is charcoal zeolite, which is a clay, and a couple little roots, but it's a binder. So if you have mold that produce toxins and you take a binder, and all of a sudden you don't bloat anymore, and you're sleeping a little bit better at night, and wow, 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 that little capsule of dirt really makes a difference, then this tells you that you have mold inside of you, and then we can run a urine test and see what you're metabolizing on the mold side and get it out of you. But this is something that's a really simple thing to apply. There's like lots of different ones at the store. You might have just even have a bag of activated charcoal at home, so when you eat something bad or you have Montezuma's Revenge kind of thing and you want to try to get the toxins out of you, you got some charcoal in the background. Well, charcoal is actually one of the primary binders for mold. So simple little thing here. I've got a lot of missionaries that go around the country or different places, and they use this regularly because they live in damp, musty places and who knows what they're eating, and they do a lot better with the mold toxins bound up. If you have recurring colds every 3 weeks and you're just snotting and coughing and you can just never get rid of blah, 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 and then you take binder and all of a sudden you're not sick every 3 weeks, it's the mold. Okay? So a pretty simple little thing you can try.
Garret, can you explain with charcoal though, like not the way to take charcoal? Some
Yeah.
people take it and then they don't realize that it's also soaking up other things.
Okay. And again, I'm not giving medical advice or protocols right now. I'm giving you nuggets to look at and say, oh yeah, you know, when I was taking charcoal for that reason or whatever, I felt a whole lot better. I never made the association that it might be mold. And you go, aha. Or somebody else is talking about taking some charcoal and you're like, I've heard that before. I'm going to try it. So yes, I will clarify, number one, I'm not giving protocols. I'm giving you some little things that you can put next to the notes there and say, hey, these are some things that I can do. I can apply some simple little principles here and get some results.
But I'm
Okay?
just saying, like, if anybody already knows something, they don't want to take it together with
Okay.
charcoal.
Yeah, charcoal's a binder. So I'll just give you guidance right now. On an empty stomach is when you take it. You don't take it with food because then it will entrain in your apple pie and meatloaf and away it goes. If you can imagine taking that capsule on an empty stomach, the little fog of particles of dust go through your digestive system. It gets into all the little undulations of gook that's in your digestive system, 700 and something square feet, thousands of little microvilli in there, and the mold can get in there, and when the toxins leak out, that little charcoal will bind up those toxins and it will help you. Okay? Make sense? And then if you are on any medications, you don't take charcoal next to the medications because a lot of times it will bind them. A lot of the carriers for medicines are fatty based, and so just a forewarning, not that I don't give charcoal to a lot of people who are using medications, I just make sure you take it away from your medication. Or herbs. A lot of herbs are oily. They have a lot of phenols and phenolic compounds, so you don't take them together. Just little guidance for you to think about. This is one tool I give to people. Have you ever heard of colloidal silver? You've heard of colloidal silver, right? Okay. It's a natural, it helps to reduce histamine. It's great for spider bites. You can use it for urinary tract issues, before you go on a plane flight, scratches, cuts. So they've got sprays, they've got liquid form, they've got gels. And so this is one thing you can have in your suitcase or in your cabinet. I give it to all the missionaries that go places because who knows what they eat? Well, they eat everything. So colloidal silver is a great tool to have at home if you don't have it. And again, it's one of those things where you can read the back of the bottle. The Sovereign Silver website has a great website on application on how to use it once a day, 3 times a day, 5 times a day, based on your symptoms. But if you're not familiar with colloidal silver, it can really help you get through foodborne illnesses. It can help you get through a spider bite that's kind of giving you a hard time, or even urinary tract issues. Okay? And some of you have probably heard a lot about digestive enzymes. This is just one of many. It doesn't matter what brand they are specifically, but just the principle of them. This one has digestive enzyme for gluten and gliadin. So if you have a gluten sensitivity and you don't digest gluten well, and all of a sudden you start digesting it, all of a sudden you don't feel like you're bloating when you have a treat. A digestive enzyme that has, it's specific for gluten and gliadin. Okay? And so a lot of kids have problems when they eat Cheerios or they eat certain foods or whatever. And if you recognize that you have sensitivities or brain fog or attention issues and you apply an enzyme that digests gluten and there's a lot of improvement, just like that charcoal binder. A lot of food sensitivities and a lot of health issues are just based on undigested food. So if you apply a digestive enzyme and you're like, voila, that worked. Then you just need some help with some stomach acid and some digestion. So digestive enzymes are a really simple tool. They're inexpensive. Some of them I have that are chewable. You might have heard of papaya enzymes, right? Papaya enzymes. Those are good, but I've got specific ones for gliadin and dairy and such, so if you have a sensitivity, you just try these enzymes, you're like, wow, I don't bloat anymore when I have a little bit of ice cream now, or I don't bloat anymore when I eat gluten, and you're just applying the enzyme, then that can be a simple little $17 or $22 tool you use each month, and you're like, man, life is so much better when I digest my food 100%, for sure. That digeszyme, yes. Claire Labs makes it. It's called Therabiotic Vitalzymes Chewable. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from me, a couple different ones. But Claire makes a lot of great enzymes that also break up the matrix of gook in the gut. So when you're taking the enzymes to digest the food, they've also got some additional things in there to break up mucus and other things that might be there from previous digestive issues. And when you take these every day, not only do you digest your food, but you start getting rid of some of that gook in there that's causing problems. So digestive enzymes are not just for digestion, they're actually janitors. God's designed for enzymes. They digest your food, but when you're sleeping, your body releases those same enzymes from the pancreas and other glands and organs, and they go through the body and do all kind of janitorial services for you. So enzymes are not just for digestion, they're actually very, very good janitors. And so I use these. You take them on an empty stomach before you go to bed at night. They do a lot of cleanup. You take them with each meal, they digest your food. You do both, you win. So nutritional therapy a lot of times is more so enzymes than vitamins. This one here is from Claire Labs. It's called Therabiotic Vitalzymes Chewable. Vitalzymes. And again, there's a lot of them out there. So if you have a question, you can post the question to us on email, and I'll try and give you as much information as I can. We've answered almost every question at least once, so we can give you a few pointers there. I'm going to stop here for a second and just allow you to ask some more questions, and I'll stop talking. You can kind of assess what you've learned, and then maybe you ask a question that you want to know and it will answer for someone else. So go ahead.
So I saw the thing, it was saying like health symptoms and stuff, a lot of gallbladder problems. And I actually had my gallbladder out when I was like 13, and they could not tell me why, because I didn't eat a lot of fast food, I didn't drink soda, my mom didn't really do any of that, and they're like, well then you should be like a 40-year-old overweight woman. I'm not. And I was also never told to take any supplements after that, which I found out this year you're supposed to be taking like Oxblood, I think it's called.
Yep. So yeah, you can get your gallbladder out at 8 in the morning and go back to work by 3. You'll be fine, just don't eat fatty foods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In my practice, I think we've only lost one gallbladder in my practice. The guy had a softball size, I mean, it was really bad, a stone in his gallbladder. But your gallbladder, the purpose of the gallbladder is to store bile. Okay, bile is two things. It's extremely toxic. It's kind of like your liver sludge. And the design is the bile comes out, attaches to the food, and you have a bowel movement. So it's like your toxic detox pathway. But bile is also really, really important for emulsifying fats. So when you go to eat some onion rings or some really saturated fatty foods, bile is a detergent. Okay? Some of us don't build it very well. B6 is essential for running the bile pathway. So how many tally marks do you have for B6 on your sheet over there? Okay. Really. Okay. So here's what you need to know about that. So you don't have to be 40 years old to almost lose your gallbladder. In college, I almost lost mine at least twice. I mean, the pains were so bad. I mean, like, when that bile is moving down your bile duct, which is smaller than the size of a coffee straw, and it's sludgy like a milk dud, it's pushing down there, it's burning for 10 or 15 minutes. You're like, man, that's got to go away. And you're like doing this kind of thing, right side. Then you don't have to be, older to have that issue. Now, what affects bile? When you get a sonogram of your gallbladder and you've got 500 BBs in your gallbladder, those are parasites. Your body stoned them, petrified them, tried to keep them under control. So parasites, so if you have constant little tiny BBs, or you have done a sonogram and hey, would you mind scanning the baby? Why don't you go up there to the gallbladder and check that area out? And you give me that 500 BB story. Those are parasites. Sound familiar? The other thing is, put two fingers together. I'm not being silly. This is a word picture. Bile is your top finger. Mold toxins is your bottom finger. When you have mold toxins, it binds to bile and renders it ineffective and very thick and sludgy. When you take a binder, and you put it in between there, you have bile for the first time that works. So you take a binder, and in 3 days, you're like, I can eat onion rings at Carl's Jr. No, I'm kidding. But you put the binder in there, your bile can actually start to work, you digest your food, it starts to thin out a little bit, and you survive. But if you don't get rid of the mold, you will have these recurring issues. Why do you have the mold? Because you don't detoxify it well to begin with. So the story for you, this would be this is actually a perfect product. This is what I use for people who have bile issues, mold, or have lost their gallbladder. It's got bile salts in it, basic digestive enzymes, so this is a very good start for you, and then over a month or 2, 3 months, maybe you change to a different one, but this is kind of like one of those all-in-one, help, my digestion's off. It's not too much bile, it's not too much enzymes, it's just a little cane, help you along. You take 1 or 2 of these, and you're like, this makes a big difference. So, okay, good question. Yeah, you don't have to be 40 to lose a gallbladder. When it talked about symptoms, burden, pain, dysfunction, if you're getting a little burning when you eat fatty foods, you're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Hello? You've raised a really good point. You might have saved a lot of gallbladders with just that question, so good job. Anyone else? No, please.
I have everything on the chronic signs of hydration stress.
Yep. No. Okay, everything on the chronic side. No, it's not. Your body is poised to heal. It goes right back to the beginning. If you are a B6er and you are dehydrated, the second you start taking B6, you will hydrate better tomorrow than you did today. It might take 6 months to a year for that to reverse, because certain joint capsules and certain ligaments and things, they just don't hydrate very quickly. So when I have somebody who has chronic hydration signs, I look at your labs, you're a B6er, and you got a couple other things, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be 6 months to get you hydrated. And what I mean by that is raisins to grapes. Some tissues hydrate faster than others, but usually the chronic signs of the pain will go away relatively quickly as long as you're consistent. But just know that you're 6 months out, and you just got to keep on your electrolytes. We'll change your electrolytes as your needs change, and as the season changes. So that's a very, very good question. No, it's not too late. I've got people who, with B6 hydration, infrared sauna, the pain goes away relatively quickly. But you can't do it without B6, because you can drink all the water you want, take all the electrolytes you want, doesn't matter. If you don't have the hormone that attaches to your cell and says, open up, here comes the good stuff, then your cell will not hydrate. Okay? No, because when the hormone works, the hormone works. So if you're nursing, it just means you have a higher demand for water. So no, it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, some tissues, if you have a lot of scar tissue, like if I've had somebody who's been in a motorcycle accident or some kind of surgery where they've got a lot of scar tissue, a lot of infection, it takes 6 months to a year to soften up that scar tissue with fatty acids and water and a few other things. So if you have a lot of physical trauma, hydration takes a lot longer. Yeah.
As far as like his B6 for children, like I know you said for us, but what would be like an option for a child to take?
Same thing. They can chew it up and swallow it. They can, if they can't swallow pills. And a lot of B6s come as a cocktail, because if you're a B6er, usually you're going to need more magnesium and you're going to need more B1 or something. So I'll get the right cocktail for you if you have that question. But you can start with B6 and water and a multivitamin, and that will make a huge difference, okay? And again, the vitamin forms can matter. It's pretty unique for each person, so I can't answer protocol, but B6 first, prenatal pack. B6 first, multivitamin. B6 first, water and electrolytes. That's the principle. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're not able to activate vitamin B6, I just give you a vitamin form where it's already active. So if you can't activate it, whether you eat a tomato or a pecan or take a prenatal pack, or a lot of products have just a basic industrial form or an inactive form. Now, when I say you're not able to activate it, I should clarify that, because you just don't activate it at 100%. Maybe you're 70%, but you're pregnant or nursing a baby or something and you need 100, or you're going through cancer therapy and you need 100%. When your genes are broken or things are not functional in your body, it's usually not 0. It's some fraction there. But if it's 70% functional and you have mold and parasites, I'll give you the B6 first with the mold and parasite chaser, and then from there you can see, wow, I've taken a lot of stress off the genes, a lot of stress off the body. Now that B6 can be bioavailable for a lot of things. So I adjust the therapies based on what you need. It's really simple. I apply the B6 to water, and you're like, I'm dreaming at night, I don't have as much knee pain, I'm not urinating at night anymore, the dimmer switch is hit, and mentally there's less stress there, and you notice it right away. It's instant. When you have a deficiency and you feel the deficiency, the response is instant. It might not be across the board, immediately fix everything, but you're like, okay, we went from a 7 to a 4 on the mental stress case, and I'm only peeing once at night instead of 3 times. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight, but you're going to notice it immediately, a change, and it's going to be across the board because B6 does so many things, or magnesium does so many things. So that's a good question.
So if you can't activate it, you won't notice a change?
If you're not able to activate the vitamin and you take a normal store-bought one, usually you won't see much of a difference because you're giving yourself a lot of vitamins, but you can't turn them on to make them functional, your gene. Mm-hmm. But that's a real common thing with the liver gallbladder is the B6 and activation issue.
Is there a brand that you recommend for B6?
Brand, not so much. All the brands that I use are professional and they're made from labs that do quality control. So if you go to the store and buy something, it's fine. I'll just give it to you now. The vitamin B6, that form that you need, it's called P5P. You can write that down. P5P. P5P. P as in Paul, 5 as in Hawaii 5-0. P as in Paul. That's an old TV show. P5P is the active form. Okay, what you'll probably see on your vitamin is the HCl form. It's called peroxidine hydrochloride. That's the inactive form. It's not that it's not helpful, but if your genes are slow, very limited, and you have mold in there, and you take the P5P form, you will notice a significant difference very quickly. So P5P, and Jarrow makes one, Nature's Bounty makes one. But myself, in my practice, I always use supplements from labs because they're labs first and there's supplement distributors second. If things don't pass quality control, they don't come out. One of the things that I love to see is back orders on products that I like, because if it's not clean, the company doesn't put it out. So if your vitamins and supplements are always available 100% of the time without exception, you got to raise a flag on that one. I've learned a long time ago. So not that you can't get something from Costco, but just be aware. There's good supplements and there's really high quality supplements where when you use them, a lot of times the ones that I have, they're cocktailed together to address mental health issues or gallbladder issues or blood sugar issues or something else. And if you find the right one, it might be a better value for you because then you got 1 bottle instead of 3. So just ask.
So I have the wrong kind of B6 that I'm taking in a prenatal. It says it's 95% of what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Can I take this B6 in addition
Yes.
to the one that's in it?
You can. It's not that it's ineffective, it's just that it's not active. If your gene works at, like I said, 50% or 60% or whatever, and you're taking your vitamin pack, it's still helpful to your body. But if you take the B6 that's active and you're like, wow, I'm dreaming at night and I'm not peeing at night and I've got more energy and my mood is better and I'm laughing at jokes, I didn't flinch when my husband touched my shoulder. Who's laughing over there? I'm just telling you the truth. That way you realize I'm giving you signposts. I mean, when God did something wonderful in the Bible, they always did a standing stone, right? They set a stone up so that they would remember what God did. I'm giving you all these little signposts. So your complaints and quibbles are what you're here for. But when I tell you, hey, you're dreaming at night, you're laughing at jokes, you ate a cupcake and you didn't cry before you went to bed at night, then you realize it's working. Little things. Mm-hmm.
So Kelly and I were talking, so I know that parasite cleansings, like on social media, that's popping up a lot. Like, oh, let me go do it really quick. And I know for some people, like you're talking about, who we don't detox well. So like, I don't want people to just go get the parasite cleansing and then all of a sudden try it and then they feel like they're dying.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to hurt yourself. And I recognize that number one, I don't Twitter, I don't Facebook, I'm not on social media. You won't find me. I'm just not there. But obviously, I know right away when somebody has got on the social media and someone's got a tribe and they put a thing out, because the 2 companies that I use for parasite cleanses, they're both empty. So I'm like, oh, I got on there. I know who did it. which is fine. But like I said, if you need to do a parasite cleanse, you're not ready for it. Okay, number one. And it was, Dr. Lee Merritt and a few others relative to COVID and some other things that said, hey, parasites are really problematic foundationally in the immune system. And so, make a long story short, I think everyone just said, I'm going to do a parasite cleanse now. Which, good point, like I told you, just remind you, if you need to do a parasite cleanse, you're not ready for it, but you can be ready in as soon as 2 to 4 weeks. So get your B6, get your hydration, and then when you give yourself a test at the zoo, see if you can climb the hill, see if you're going potty at night on, doing well. Things that you can look at and say, okay, I feel like when I drink my water and things, I'm functional. Then you can say, maybe I'm ready for a parasite cleanse. If you have questions, you can just call us and ask. But we're at about 11:25 right now, so I'm going to end it formally, and then we will continue at the back tables or over the cupcakes. Sound good? Okay. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Can we thank Garrett one more time? So great, thank you. Okay, so we're just a couple minutes out to having to